Welcome to Better Sex, where you get the information and inspiration to create and enjoy your best possible sex life. Join your host, sex therapist Jessa Zimmerman, as she brings you expert guests, helpful tips, knowledge, and strategies to improve your intimate relationships. And now, your host, Jessa Zimmerman.
Hey, it's Jessa, back for another episode of the Better Sex Podcast. I am excited to be here again this week, and I am so glad you're here listening. I want to make sure you know about the free monthly webinars that I have started offering. I do them twice a month at 2 different times to try to make them accessible for people. And I present a little bit of a topic, but largely I'm just available for Q&A. This is available for free for anybody that's part of my mailing list community. So if you want to join in, you can go to seattlesextherapist.com/list and sign up. You will get some emails sent to your inbox as well that you can read if you wish. I'm always trying to offer helpful information, but then it will also give you access to those webinars. So I have the distinct pleasure and honor of getting to talk to so many interesting people about sex in bringing this show. And in fact, sometimes when I wonder, what am I doing? Is this making a difference? Is this helping people? Or do people care? I always go back to, at least, I'm having a great time. I so enjoy talking to all these different people. And the breadth of topics, the variety of things that we can talk about sex seems endless to me. So today's topic is new. It's a different one. But it's something that really matters to me. And my guest is calling it third age sex, like the last third of our life, our older years, and how important and vibrant sex can be all the way up to the very end. And this is something that resonates with me on a regular basis. I mean, in my therapy practice, I think the oldest clients that I've had have been about 80. And I'm always so excited when I see older people still sexually active and sexually engaged and really caring about the quality of their intimate life. It's also come to me, I did an episode, I can't remember what number it was, about sex and the elderly, the issues of people in nursing homes or in care facilities or getting health care as older people and how their sexual nature is denied or dismissed. I think it's a real quality of life issue and people don't know enough about it. So today I've got somebody willing to come on and share about her own personal journey as a sexual being her whole life. And in some ways you're going to hear, some ways being a late bloomer and coming to some things later in life. But sexuality has been a through line through her whole life. And now, in her late 60s, is now married to the man of her dreams just for a few years. I mean, has really hit the jackpot in this third age. And she's going to share her story, some of her challenges, her strategies, but hopefully just totally inspire you and normalize the idea that we can be sexual up to our very, very end. So Ellen Dechesne is my guest, and I really hope you enjoy the show. Ellen, thank you so much for being on the show today.
I'm excited to talk to you, Jessa.
Yeah, I want to hear your whole story. It sounds so juicy. So start us off. I mean, maybe give the listeners just a little intro to you, and where does your story start?
I have always been interested in sex.
Yeah.
I was born in 1951, and that puts me right in the middle of the Cultural Revolution with its sexual freedoms and permissions. I was always attracted to the hippie lifestyle, and I just went for it.
Okay.
Right before high school was even over. I realize now that I was sexy from the age of 17, but I didn't know it. And that was perhaps just as well. Oddly, I turned out to be a late bloomer. I was a virgin until I was 18. I had my children very late and married late into my life. And I turned out to be a dating boomer in my 50s and even early 60s. So even though I had an early interest, it seems that I was on a bit of a delay for what you'd call the normal milestones.
To what do you attribute that?
I think that I was not aware of my own, let's call it feminine power, as when I was younger. I've really probably only come into an understanding and an appreciation of that probably since my mid 50s. And I'll tell you why in a few moments. I'll just give you a little bit of background. In my 20s, I had a really first good relationship, which lasted 10 years, and that's the longest I've ever spent with anybody.
Oh,
But
wow.
it was where I discovered that sex is so much better with love and humor and risk taking, and that I was responsible for my own orgasm, and that sexually aspirational opportunities were probably always around, and it was really a matter of creating opportunities and of grasping them when they came along. I stayed curious and open about sex, but I probably put the emphasis more on building relationships and family, and that was elusive for me. Perhaps.
Do you mean relationships and family were elusive?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes. I wasn't at all interested in marriage in the traditional sense, but I was certainly interested in building a home and having a family and being settled and going through all those milestones. And that actually eluded me until my 40s.
Ah, wow.
So in my 30s, when I was again single, I discovered the distinct pleasures of younger men. I enjoyed being in charge at that point, and I enjoyed providing the charge. And since then, I have found that younger men are delighted to be considered by a mature woman, by a woman who knows what she wants. And I think that that's something that is really good to remember as you approach your 50s. For women who find themselves single, they should not overlook even quite a bit younger men.
I don't know if you, I did one episode on that with a woman who'd written a book. It's sort of about cougar cub relationships is how she
Yes.
framed that. You know, it was really an interesting conversation.
I heard that one, and I fully support that lifestyle.
Yeah.
I know that she is still living that as a lifestyle. For me, it was more of a means to an end. But at 39, I actually got married for the first time. I had started the first Canadian chapter of a group called Single Mothers by Choice. But just before I could really move into that activity, I was made an offer of marriage from an old friend who said, "Oh, I can't let you do that on your own." And that was probably the biggest mistake I've ever made, was marrying a 17-year-old friend. He wasn't. The relationship we've been friends for 17 years, and that didn't last very long.
So wait, do I understand you were poised to start to have children alone as a single woman?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And he was going to save you from that. That's or help you with that or something. Okay.
Now I'm in my 40s. So 2 years after that, I married an economist that I had met through a newspaper, classifieds, if you can cast your mind back to pre-dating.
Right. The precursor of swiping. Yes.
Yes, it was. I became a diplomatic wife, which took me to France and to Slovakia. My son was born when I was 41 in Paris, and my daughter was born when I was 46 in Vienna, Austria. It was a sexless marriage. I've come to realize that fewer than 10 times a year is considered sexless.
Right.
And
enough to make babies, but not much more than that.
Yes. He later called us an excellent biological unit. A reproductive unit. We were a good reproductive unit, but that's pretty much as far as it went. I was considered in that marriage to be a nymphomaniac, which is really a dated phrase.
Do you mean that's a word he would use?
Yes.
Wow.
And so that was not going to last. And I ended up raising my children myself in my 50s and early 60s. Now that moves us into the third age. Part of my transformation was that when I was 55, I was dating someone briefly, and we went to an erotica and film festival in my city. And there I met the founders, who were quite a bit older than me, and they had been involved in the very part of the early part of the sexual revolution in California in the early 60s. They had been in communes and living the lifestyle, which some people call swinging.
Right.
But I don't think it was considered swinging then. It was just free love for all. And I think through my friendship with them and socializing with them and feeling that really, if I was going to come into my sexual self, it was now or never in my mid-50s. And they were older and they were still very sexual and enjoying the lifestyle. And so I think that at that point, I realized that I wanted to have a good time, but I might as well be having a sexy good time. Whether it was by myself or whether it was in a couple or among friends or going out for the evening, I always had that interest in just upping it a little bit to include that bit of erotic tingle.
Right. So in the two marriages, I'm understanding they were not sexually charged, right? But other than that, had you had a variety of sexual experiences in your late teens, 20s, 30s? Had you had, do you feel like you knew who you were sexually and you knew what you wanted and you were having encounters that you felt good about?
Yes, I think I did. In that first relationship in my 20s, there were, 2 or 3 sort of drunken threesome evenings, and there were a few possible opportunities with other couples that didn't really materialize, but that we were open to.
Mm-hmm.
And although, this was the 70s and it was the time of Margaret Trudeau dancing in Studio 54, I was actually living in a small city and in Ontario, and things were very straight all around me.
Yeah.
I think I was a bit influenced by that because, again, I wanted to have a family, which then didn't happen. It was a strange time for me because while the rest of my peers, the boomers, were all, this is, pre-AIDS, free love.
Yeah.
I was in a 10-year relationship. And when I emerged from that relationship at 30, everybody, well, men particularly, were just starting to settle down and have their children and want to be settled. And suddenly I was single, but I did pursue an erotic single life.
Okay.
And I think that's always been I think it's been a bit of a self-rescue operation because I didn't particularly want to be single. The fact that I could have an erotic singlehood and bring that sensibility to every relationship and even every friendship that I had kind of upped my game. It kept things juicy. It kept me from becoming resigned or depressed about it. I think it kept me shiny on the outside enough that I could attract men, friends, situations to myself in a way that I don't always see with middle-aged women who find themselves single, whether from divorce or they've just had a serial monogamy, that I think sometimes they become a bit dulled out, grayed out.
Yeah.
And I realize looking back now that it's important to just kind of stay shiny. It's not, it has to come from within. It isn't something that I could have acted.
Right. But were you doing it on purpose? Like,
No.
I don't want to lose this, or this is just who you are?
Yes, I think so. And I think there, the sexologists do talk about if you are a sexual being, if you have remained sexual, it's much easier to keep sex going all your life despite biological changes.
Yes.
And I'm reaping those rewards now.
Okay.
So I'm leaning on 68 and I'm not slowing down.
Right. All right. So share a little bit more from this point in the story where you went to the film festival, you connected with the founders of that.
So sensuality, even in hookups during those early years of internet dating, even when they were a bit hard to arrange, having young children at home, because family always trumps everything, of course. I did find that overlay of sensuality, that willingness to live an erotic life, propel me then into the next 2 important relationships in my life. One was a 4-year-long relationship that during which I was engaged for a while, and it was tremendous fun, lots of good sex, but it was a bit lightweight for me and did finally end. at that point, I think the most important kind of message that I have for women in my age group, in my demographic, is that when I became suddenly single at 59, I could have folded, but in fact, I did the exact opposite. I went to the gym more. I became very lean and youthful, and I grew my hair longer. And by the time I gave myself a 60th birthday party during the Saturday Blues Jam downtown, I could be found dressed in a yoga top with cutaway shoulders and a flowered mini skirt. And I was just tanned and lean and very much in charge of myself. And whether I was going to meet anyone or be single for the rest of my life, this was in fact the new 60.
Yeah.
The reinvention at that point was absolutely essential to setting myself up for what's called the third age, or the final act of my life. And about 13 months later, when I just was thinking, I'm healed from this breakup, and I might just give up on being a wife, might give up on monogamy, might just, let's see what happens. I met the man of my dreams. And unbelievably enough, we were married 2 years ago. So I'm a newlywed.
Wow. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. And that pretty much takes us to my last marriage. I'm still beguiled by a younger man. And this is the husband I always longed for.
Wow.
And I wonder if that has to do partially with who he is, of course, but also how light I was when I met him. I wasn't burdened by my singleness, by my age, by biology. At 57, I had a short period of loss of libido. It was quite sudden. It was almost traumatic, because I had thought that I had escaped that post sort of menopausal dryness.
Yeah.
And I simply wasn't going to go down. So I spent 2 years going from doctor to doctor and researching and asking a lot of questions until I found an MD who specialized in sexual problems and, put me on the HRT program that I'm still on.
Oh, okay.
This is now coming on to 15 years that I've been on a program, which I can outline for you if you like. And it's just really a matter of, I believe that any woman who is willing to invest time and some of her budget in her sexual vibrancy after menopause can continue to enjoy sex and feel sexy all her life.
Yeah.
And that's what I now call the erotic life. And that's actually what my husband and I plan to do in our retirement. Instead of living the 3 Gs, gardening, golf, and grandchildren.
I was going to say, I haven't heard the 3 Gs, but that makes sense.
No, I hadn't either. But it was very useful to organize my thoughts around it, because I've decided that I'm going to live the 3 Rs: real talk, research, and responsiveness. So when my husband, who's 9 years younger than I am, suggests something, I am open. When I suggest something, the thing I like best about him is that he is open to suggestion, to mixing it up, keeping things interesting, having date nights, having scheduled skin nights, Tuesday touch nights, and whatever I read, whatever I hear on wonderful podcasts like yours, I just try to see if, I can do that.
Hi, it's Jessa here, taking just a quick break. Thanks for listening so far. I wanted to let you know about the sex quiz that I've put together called How Healthy Is Your Sex Life? I've taken a close look at the typical ways that I see couples get into trouble with sex, including avoidance, neglect, negativity, distraction, and boredom. And the free quiz will score your individual results based on these factors. And then I provide my recommendations and ideas, including my top 10 sex tips, which will help you make instant improvement. If you'd like to take the quiz and see how healthy your sex life is, you can do it right now at sexhealthquiz.com. much of what you're describing, it just seems like it comes from who you are and who you've always been. Like, I'm hearing that you had decision points, I'm newly single at 57 or 59. I could give up, but it doesn't even sound like that was ever really an option for you, or that you had to climb out of too deep of a hole. You know what I mean?
That's right. It was not an option for me. I am an eternal optimist, and I'm probably a little bit unrealistic about having not given up and just always thinking that there was a future, that there was something around the corner. After all, by the time you've dated pretty much every single man in your demographic in town, you start believing your friends when they say, but it only takes one.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
I think it does come from within me, but as a lifelong sexual activity activist or advocate, I do want a very clear message to go out to women, say, post 50, because one of my great inspirations, Betty Dodson, has always said that life and the best sex of your life can begin at 55.
Right.
She's 89 now. And when I spent a day with her when she was only 78, she's exactly the woman she is now when she was 78 and when she was 38.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have to end. But you do have to take some steps.
Right.
My program it's pretty straightforward. I'm on hormone replacement therapy. I have been for 15 years, and my gynecologist says to me, just keep doing what you're doing because it seems to be working. Estradiol patches, vaginal estrogen. I take about 15 nutritional supplements morning and evening. I exercise, not as thoroughly as I used to 10 years ago, but just keep moving. I'm sure you've heard that advice. My diet is what my favorite food journalist Michael Pollan calls eat real food, mostly plants, not too much.
Right.
It's a lovely summation. And I'm living this self-styled erotic life. It's our retirement hobby.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
I think that's a program that's adoptable by anyone post 50. I mean, preferably in marriage where you already have a closeness and an intimacy, but certainly for single women, it is possible to reinvent yourself at 60. It's possible to marry a sexy younger man at 65.
Yeah, yeah.
Living proof.
Would you share a little bit about, when you approached me about being on the podcast and wrote a fair amount of detail about some of the specific challenges, sexual challenges that you and or your husband have had, in this third age, because it's not like it's all been smooth sailing, right? And so what are some of the challenges you've had, and then what have the strategies been to adapt or work around those?
Right after we were married, he encountered a number of health issues that really came one after another. And one of them was that he discovered that his testosterone levels had dropped. He didn't expect that, and it wasn't something that was indicated by his sexual prowess, but his libido did drop somewhat. And it was puzzling for a while, but I did encourage him to get his testosterone checked, and it was incredibly low. So, the relationship among depression and low testosterone and grumpiness, grumpy old man syndrome, and some physical issues which may manifest somehow in that mix. It was all happening to him. And I did not take it personally, but I did start after about 18 months to become concerned that, well, how could I, as this older woman, be the higher desire spouse in this marriage to a younger man? I mean, he's now 58. When I was 58, I was cooking, but I had been on HRT already for 6 years. So the way we're dealing with it is really for me to keep being myself and for him to keep being open to me being that person. So sometimes it shakes up his British reserve somewhat when I say, we've just got to be making appointments. We've got to keep going out on date nights. We've got to go out and dance. We've got to dance in our living room to our favorite music. we've got to turn off the TV and not get in a rut, even in the winter time. And he keeps being open to that. So as a couple who have finally found the person of their dreams, we're so committed to working through every problem that it's really just another stage of our marriage.
Yeah.
We're not isolating it as, oh, we have sexual problems, because we certainly don't.
Yeah.
But it was odd to me. You know, it was a bit confusing that I could want it more than he did. And so we're just dealing with it, the usual medical appointments. We go to them together so that I can ask questions.
Yeah.
He goes to my medical appointments so that we can be up to speed on each other's health and progress. And I guess when I see the kinds of marriages all around me, granted, some of them are 25 and 30 years old, not 2 or 3 or 5 years old.
Right.
But they seem to accept that when you get older, sex will just die off, you get crusty, you dry up, and so you turn your attention to other things. And I don't buy that.
Yeah. I mean, it sort of goes to show you get what you expect, right? We see what we look for and we get what we expect. We dream our existence into being to some degree.
I wish that I had believed that more in my 20s.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's 100%, but I just think your obviously zest for life and refusal to submit,
Yes.
to give in and gray. I like how you put that.
Yes, graying out in our gray years. There's an interesting psychotherapist and end of life writer called Marita Henzel. She's 72. I think she's French. She says, women my age are not afraid to fight our youth-obsessed culture and reclaim our sexuality. Love, sex, and desire are key to the physical and psychological health of older people. Now, we're living in an information golden age in terms of sex, right? You talk about it. I'm reading constantly articles in which women are doing sex drives through the United States with a giant sculpted clitoris in the back seat to call attention to the shape of the clitoris. And women have basically Ferraris and men have bicycles.
Yeah.
When it comes to sex organs. There's all this information available. And I read it and I consume it. But what I never hear is old people talking about their own sexual experience. In fact, recently I heard a podcast in which a very young sounding woman who was, I think, in advocacy for elder care clients spoke about old age sexuality in a very squeaky voice. She sounded about 22 years old and had for me, absolutely had no veracity. What I would just like to be one of the old people who are saying, hey, yes, it's possible.
Yeah.
Live the life that you lived when you were 30 or that you wished you'd been living when you were in your 30s.
Yeah.
And young people, please stop calling us cute when they see us canoodling in the alley outside the bar.
Yeah, that displays a lot of the bias that exists culturally.
Oh my, society is still not comfortable with older people being sexually active.
Yeah.
And it is so over, really.
Right.
We're so done with that part of history. And yet, as I say, I don't hear people my age just saying, yes, I'm sexually active. I'm more than active. I'm living the erotic life. It is possible. Join in. I'm not a case. I'm not a problem to be solved. I'm not a medical issue.
Right.
As boomers, we will be the generation that will age erotically.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not the vanguard. I hope I'm already mainstream.
I hope so too. I know, I practice. I talk about this sometimes. My oldest clients have been about 80, which I just love. And I try to talk about that wherever I can because it is so important, 20 to 80 all the way through. Sex matters. I mean, that's why I do this. I think it really matters. And I love that you're such a shining example of, refusing to gray in that way and just embracing vibrancy and haven't let that slip away from you. I am curious. I work with obviously as a sex therapist, I'm working with people that are struggling with sex, and I can just hear so many of my clients sort of saying, "Oh, what's the point? I don't," they've sort of lost their interest already. And the idea of, I think some people listening can't even imagine wanting to embrace this or dig it, excavate it, resurrect it. What might you say to somebody who's wondering if it's even worth the trouble or why bother? I'm pretty happy gardening.
Certainly, living the erotic life isn't for everyone. Mm-hmm. There are always going to be people who were never that interested in sex, who had rather unjuicy marriages. They had their children, and now they're interested, as you say, in gardening and the grandchildren. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. I'm not trying to convert them.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think there are many, many who do feel there's something there, and it is a matter of excavation. Let them be their own archaeologists. Dig down, drill down with the help of your medical team, read lots, listen to lots of Justice Zimmerman, better sex, for everybody. And don't be talked down to, and don't allow your medical people to dismiss you.
Yeah.
I was told by my GP when I inquired about the middle-age spread, like, where did my waistline go? I had a waistline at 63 and then it was gone suddenly at 65. And, I was patronized. I was told maybe I'm a bit of a glass half empty person, and, bodies age, it's normal. And there was nothing normal to me about it.
Yeah.
I wanted to continue to, if I work hard, if I eat right and take the right supplements, I wanted to maintain. And I think it is, my word to them would be, just don't give up. Just be stubborn.
Yeah. Yeah. You're pointing out so many ways in which we get the message that, our ship has sailed, right? We should be gracefully accepting this new reality and let that stuff go as if it's the purview of youth or something. But
I certainly hope that is history. I hope that approach is soon to be thought as dated as the fact that you can only have a 67-year life expectancy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nowadays, when people die at 67, people go, "Oh, he was so young." Well, we should be thinking about making love until the end, as long as we can. Why would it be unusual or cute to hear about, your parents, your grandparents having an active sex life?
Right.
Going away on mini breaks and sexy holidays and clothing optional resorts, all the things that we only associate with young people.
Yeah.
No, that's over. Yeah. I declare it over.
I'm with you. I sign up. You're a wonderful example of this. And I'm just so grateful that you're willing to share your story and this really positive message for people.
And thank you for the work you do.
Oh, thank you. So do you want to say a word? I mean, I know you're working on a book, which maybe it's even too early to talk about because you probably don't even have a title, but do you want people to get in touch with you if they're so inspired? Is that something you want to talk about?
Let's talk about it. I want to initiate dialogue among people who haven't given up and are really clawing their way sexually to the end. Let's talk. If anybody wants to pick my brains, look for a little encouragement or not medical advice, and
right?
untrained advice, they can reach me at olderbabe@shaw.ca.
Okay. I'll stick the link in the show notes too. So if anybody's moved to reach out to you, then they can.
And I will be back to you with my book when it's written.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Jessa.
You've been listening to Better Sex. Please visit our website, bettersexpodcast.com, for show notes and additional episodes.
And that's a wrap for today. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are enjoying the podcast, if some of this material resonates with you and you would like to make a difference and make sure that this keeps coming out in the world once a week, ongoing, there are a couple things you could do to show your appreciation. The first would be to go to iTunes and rate and review the show. That really helps us be found by new listeners when you review the show on iTunes. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/iTunes. The other thing I want to invite you to consider is becoming a Patreon. For a small monthly pledge, you get some benefits. So for $2 a month, you get advance access to every single episode. For $5 a month, you get a chapter of my upcoming new book. And for $10 a month, I host quarterly get-to-know-you and question-and-answer chats over the web, and you get invited to that. I would love to have your membership in that, become part of the Better Sex family. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/Patreon, which is Patreon. Again, thanks for listening. I'm glad you're here. Feel free to comment, ask questions, get in touch. I'd love to hear from listeners. Thanks.